And a welcome here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. Thank you for your patience here this morning as we got set to go inside the Great Lakes Honda City studios. Great Lakes Honda City coming to you on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. You can go and visit Great Lakes Honda City Monday through Saturday for sales and service, and we suggest that you do so. Head out there today. Let them know that Wake Up Call sent you their way for new and used vehicles. Finding your next ride goes straight to Great Lakes Honda City and their staff that'll bring you through the entire process and help you find the car that meets the needs for you as well as for your family and your loved ones if you're helping them select a car as well. Everything from the Accord to the Civic, as well as for your passport, as well as the Pilot, the HRV, my favorite, the CRV, and more, including the Ridgeline. You can head out to Great Lakes Honda City today, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. We are here up and down the East Coast, the Midwest, the West Coast, and all around the globe on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. You are watching and listening on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, and on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com. So wherever you are and however you are listening, I thank you all for tuning into the show and being a part of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. Here on the show today, as you know, on Fridays, we bring you our trio of signature segments that are with us on Friday, and that being the Annoying Moment of the Week, proudly presented by Carvel DeWitt, 4322 East Genesee Street. It is what happy tastes like. Followed by Lead, Learn, Evolve, Ad-Lib, and Deliver, brought to you by Chick-fil-A Cicero on 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, New York. And the Top Dog of the Week, proudly presented by K-9 Kamp Dog Daycare, the only place to bring your dog for daily care, the home away from home, and you can go and see them at 228 Old Bridge Street in East Syracuse, right across from BJ's and right by Erie Boulevard, as well as the highway. So those are all coming up today, as they always do on a Friday, inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin', and we will round out the show with Bud Alderman, fellow sports writer who I met through my coverage of the ACC. He'll be joining me today to speak on the House settlement and the future of collegiate athletics from his point of view. So with all that being said, here inside the Great Lakes Honda City studios, let's get started with the Annoying Moment of the Week, proudly presented by Carvel DeWitt.
Dan Tortora proudly brings you...
Is that for real? Are you kidding me?
The Annoying Moment of the Week.
I really, honestly, I don't know how to respond to this.
Presented by Carvel DeWitt, 4322 East Genesee Street. It's what happy tastes like.
Do you have to be that crazy? I guess so. The Annoying Moment of the Week, proudly presented by Carvel DeWitt. Happy to bring it to you every single Friday. Including from Italy that we did, bringing you the Annoying Moment of the Week from Rome when I was in Italy just a little while ago, as well as bringing you an Annoying Moment of the Week when I was in Capri. And you're like, Dan, what could you have possibly said were the annoying moments of the week? And it was nothing to do really with Italy. It was more to do with how people act. And today goes off of that as well. How people treat people. And so my annoying moment of the week for today definitely has to do with people that are just absolutely positively, I mean, the ones that you kind of question, what do they do for a living? What is their job? Because when you see them, they're kind of just sitting there. I mean, sometimes they're staring at a computer screen, but you wonder, what are they doing? Are they zoning out? Are they playing solitaire? But listen, there's people in this world that you really honestly, you walk into a room, and I feel like we've all felt this, and if we haven't, then I think you will at some point. Not that I wish it on you by any stretch of the imagination, because I don't. But you'll walk into a room filled with people, and there might be a person or 2 or 10 in that room that you have never really talked to. They know barely nothing about you except for maybe hi-bye, and you just get that feeling that they don't like you. You get that feeling that you're not welcome. You get that feeling that they don't want you around. They don't want you to be a part of anything. And that feeling is not a great feeling. It's sad that we feel that feeling. It's sad that those moments happen, but they're real moments. They're things that just come about in life. You will encounter people that may not be nice to you, that may not respect you, that may not be kind to you, and it may make absolutely no sense. There may be no rhyme or reason to it, but it happens. But it's my annoying moment of the week because when you're a total stranger to somebody and you treat that person with disrespect, what are you trying to accomplish in your life? By pissing off or pushing away someone who you don't even know what you're pushing away. And, I've encountered stuff like that this week where I walk into a room and I feel very unwelcome. I don't feel like they want me in that room by any stretch of the imagination. And that's okay. That's fine. See, me in the past would have been like, oh man, like, they don't want me here. That stinks. Now I look at them and I go, hey, if you don't think I belong in this room, I'm going to stand in this room for 3 more seconds just so you have to feel me here and understand that I'm not going to leave when you want me to leave. I'll leave when I want to go. And I was in one of those rooms this week with people that I wonder what they do for a living. And I'll put it to you like this. If you're on your job and you're working, I understand we look at our phones. But if everyone in an office is looking at their phone at the same time, what work is being accomplished? Because you're sitting at a desk where you have a computer. So you can't say you're sending an email because it's a lot easier to do that on the computer, right? You can't say you're on the phone talking to somebody because you're not. So if I were a boss, I am a boss of this company, but if I were a boss in this setting that I was in this week, and I walked into a room of a bunch of people sitting behind one desk doing nothing, I would say, okay, if all of you can fit behind this desk, that means I can fire everyone but one of you. Because if you all feel like you want to take up one desk, well, that to me is only one worker. And since none of you are doing a job, I'm going to give you a fighter's chance here that one of you can show me something that you do. Because if you're all behind one desk, well, I can get rid of this desk, I can get rid of that desk, and guess what? I only need one of you. And I don't know why we have rationalized the normalcy of having phones out in class and phones out at work. When I worked at Disney, if we took our phone out on stage, that's what it's called. When we were in front of guests, we were on stage. If we took our phone out on stage, we could be fired. Fired. Not like, oh, Dan, please put it away. There was always the threat that we could be fired. So now I go to places of business, and like I did this week, and it wasn't one person on the phone in the office. 100% of the people in the office were on their phones. They weren't talking to each other. They weren't looking at each other. They were all next to each other, arm to arm, and on their phones. And maybe they were all playing Scrabble together versus each other. I don't know. Maybe it was a team thing. Team Tetris. I have no idea. And I realize this in schools too now. Teachers will literally say to students, like, you can have your phone out during class as long as you don't have it out when I'm talking. As long as you pay attention to me, I don't mind if your phone's out. And I feel bad because I'm thinking in my head, did that teacher really want to say that? Or does the teacher feel like they have to say that? Does a teacher feel forced now to allow students to use their phones whether they like it or not? So now they're trying to make it like, oh, no, it's okay with me, but it's really not okay. And I don't understand. I mean, think about some of the changes we've made to society. Has it made society better? Does allowing phones in schools and allowing teenagers and preteens to text while a teacher's speaking or while class is going on, has that made society better? Has that made people more intelligent? Has it given them more manners? I think those answers are no. And does texting at work and people walking into your office and seeing that you're not really into talking to them, you're not really into acknowledging anybody's walk through the door, and whatever on your phone is important, does that make you feel like those people at that job actually care? See, my first impression if I walk into a business, especially if you're the first person I see and you're on your cell phone and you look like you could care less about me or anybody else in that room, I don't respect your business. I don't respect you. I respect you as a child of God. I don't respect your decision making. I can respect everybody and say, hey, we all come from God. I want us all to go back home to heaven someday. But I don't have to respect what you do and how you treat people and your lack of professionalism. And that's really what I'm talking about in life today. There's this like lack of professionalism. There's this lack of just, I mean, I think my dad would call it couth. You know, when to carry yourself in a certain way where you actually look like you give a darn. And I just don't get the cell phone thing. I don't understand the need to be on it every second of the day. And listen, I have had my moments. I've absolutely had my moments. I've had my moments this week where I was in bed last night and I found some funny things on Reels and whatnot, but then time's ticking and I'm going, dude, you are losing sleep over the fact that you're laughing a little bit. Like, go to bed, look at these tomorrow. So, but here's my thing. If I'm at a meeting, I'm not doing this. If I'm at an interview, I'm not doing this. If I'm on a date, I'm not doing it. I told my buddy yesterday, I said, if I'm on a first date with a girl and she is on her cell phone, unless she is a doctor who works in an emergency room and is constantly on call, that's the last date I'm going to have with that girl. Because if you can't pay attention, here's the thing. And maybe people would say it's my fault, but I think that would be really stupid and ridiculous. I will tell you why. If people say, well, it's your fault you're so excited for dating, it's your fault that, like, at 39 years old, you look forward to it. It's my fault that I want to be positive and hopeful. It's my fault that I think two human beings can actually pay attention to each other without going on Instagram or TikTok. Listen, I'm not knocking those sites. I utilize them to the advantage of my company. But I don't need to be on them when I'm on a date. I can be on those. Those videos are going to be there when I'm home. And if I'm on a date with somebody and she's on their phone, I remember there was this like double date scenario thing, and I did it to help out a buddy because there was like a cancellation or something. I don't know. So it was for some event. And so I did it, and the girl that I was supposed to be on a date with was on her phone. And the guy and the girl that were there at the same table with us were on their phones. And my phone was in my pocket. And the girl that I was supposed to be on the date with, she goes, I think we owe you a round of applause. And I said, excuse me? And she said, every single one of us has taken out our phone and been looking at our phone. You're the only person who hasn't done it. She goes, didn't you say you own a business? And I said, yeah. She goes, aren't you worried that somebody needs to get in touch with you? I said, they can get in touch with me when I'm done here. I'll reach out. I looked at her. I go, you think my phone hasn't gone off? It's like my phone's gone off like 7 times in my pocket. I could feel it, but I'm here with you. And I'm trying to like pay attention. She's like, wow, like somebody raised you right. And I'm like, yeah, and somebody didn't raise you right. Like, or maybe they raised you right and you forgot what they, because it's, hey, sometimes it's the parents and sometimes it's the kid going against their parents' actual good raising techniques. And, you know, for a woman to say we all owe you a round of applause, or a man to say we all owe you a round of applause because you're the only person sitting at the table that is actually wanting to like interact with people at the table, you don't owe me a round of applause. Like, y'all owe yourselves a little come to Jesus moment. Don't clap for me. Figure out why you can't get off your phone. Like, we're all here for a dinner. None of us have met each other before. We don't know each other. Why in the heck would we waste this time even if we're not interested, even if we don't really care if it works out. We're here, you know, and you can leave. You can leave anytime you want to. Get in a car and use your phone when you're sitting in the parking lot. And I just think it's funny that people want to, like, commend you, like you deserve a medal for not using your phone if you're on a date or at a meeting or in an event or at a job interview. It's just crazy to me. Mike said, unfortunately, it's 2025 and the cell phone has taken over people's lives. I'm old enough to remember the bag phone in my dad's truck, then beepers after that. Crazy. Great interview with Bryce Mills yesterday. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you, man. And Mike, I know you've been supporting the show and everything I do at Dan Tortora Broadcast Media in general, not just Wake Up Call. So I want to say thank you for that. I appreciate you, man. I really do. I know it's 2025 and I know that technology is whatever, but think about what society, again, what I said before, think about what society has become. Do you feel like we're more detached from each other? I would say most people would say yes. Do you think that we have a lack of empathy for each other? I would say in some cases, yes. Do you feel like we're kind of desensitized to when things happen, bad things? I would argue and say yes. Where do you think all that came from? Technology. See, I believe that a family that eats together, like my family did growing up, like those kids turn out better. A family that actually sits down and has a meal together and like talks about their day and how are you, honey? I still do that, you know? And it's funny because like I would go out and get food with my mom and my mom would be on her phone the whole time. And then there were times where we went out and I was on my phone the majority of the time. And now my mom really doesn't take her phone out. And I try to not take my phone out either so that I can actually like talk to my mom, because I remember how much it annoyed me when she took it out. And so then I think to myself, when I was out there with her and she was on her phone, I felt like it didn't matter that I was out there with her. Like she didn't care that I was out there. And I don't want to make somebody feel like that. And now my mom will look at me and she'll go, you know, your phone's, you've had your phone out the whole time. And so my mother has made this effort of saying like, I don't need to answer that right now. I don't have to answer every ding in my phone. And I don't have to answer it either. And I feel like when you eat together and you ask each other about your days and what's going on, I find that to be incredibly important. I do that with Papa Joe and Mary. I go out and eat every week with my mom, pretty much every week, try to go every week with my dad. And I value that time. And if I'm on my phone or if I'm talking about myself and I don't ask them about them, like that's the first thing I think about when I'm walking to the car. I'm like, man, I should ask my mom more about that. I should ask my dad about that. I monopolized this. I talked too much about that. I took my phone out. Like I want the people that are in my presence to understand I appreciate their presence. And that their presence is a present. And if I don't want to be around you, I'm not going to be mean. I'm not going to be disrespectful. I'm just going to keep it moving. Like there's people that I do not trust. There's people that do not respect me. There are people that come and go as they please when they maybe need something, or pretend that they're my friend when they're in my face, but as soon as they turn around and walk away, if I texted them when they're 3 feet away from me, they're not going to answer that message. I don't have time for those people. I'm not going to sit and break bread with them. Now, if I'm in a scenario where I have to, that's fine. And I can ask how your day is and what's going on and this and that. And I can be genuine, but I don't have to. I don't feel the need to disrespect someone who disrespected me. It's hard sometimes to not meet somebody where they're at when they're really just not a nice person. But, when I left that place that I was at where everybody was on their phone and nobody seemed to care about anything or even acknowledge that I was in the room, I wanted to say something. And I chose to say, okay, have a good day. Because what would Jesus do? It's not my job to tell them the level of disrespect that they present. It's not my job to take their phone away. It's not my job to ask them what they actually do for a living. It's not my job to tell them that they're extremely hypocritical and they would never want somebody to not look them in the eye or acknowledge them when they come into the room. It's not my job to ask them to be kind and compassionate and in the moment. Now, I can bring it up to them and I can tell them all the things that I said. It doesn't mean they're going to change. You can bring a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, right? You force a horse's face into water, you might drown that horse by trying to force it to drink. And I don't want to drown anybody. Listen, you're going to do what you want to do. And in some cases, one of the people in the room is old enough to be my dad. And I thought to myself, like, you're sitting next to 20-something-year-olds and you're just as bad as they are. And some people excuse them and go, well, they were born with technology in their hand. I don't excuse anybody with that. If I'm a boss and I walk into the room and I speak to you and you look up for a half a second and go back to your phone, oh, he's not talking to me, he's talking, okay, so I can go back to my phone. I would have flipped out. Not flipped out. I would have been like, give me your phones, put them in a basket, do your job. In the next hour, I want you to do work and I want you to show me what it is. I don't know why people feel so comfortable doing nothing at work or the bare minimum and think that, like, they're proud of themselves, that they've earned a paycheck. When you have limitations and you fight for them, you get to keep them. And I look at the person and I put the onus on them that they are not working hard, but I also put it on their boss. And I also say, if you know that this is the level of nothing that you get every day, why are you keeping it? There's a way to handle yourself. And I just feel like, why are we so afraid? Afraid to offend, afraid to bother. Like, you as a boss are afraid to ask people to do their job. You're afraid to fire them. You're afraid to hold them accountable. What's the repercussion? Well, they'll go to HR and then I have to talk to HR. Talk to HR about what? Every time I open my door, they're on their cell phone. Why don't we check their call logs? Well, you can't do that. That's personal information. Okay. Well, I'm paying this person. They're on their phone 95% of the time. Why am I paying? And by the way, you're paying them, and this company is paying them. Why do we have to keep accepting mediocrity in society is really the bigger question that I'm asking for this annoying moment of the week. Why are we afraid to call people out for not doing what they're supposed to be doing? You show up at Disney late 3 times in a certain period, you got fired. Each time you were late was a point or a half a point. If you got late, and the points wouldn't roll off until a certain amount of time had passed by. So if I was late, let's say by 10 minutes and then by 1 minute, so let's say that was a point and a half. The 10 minutes was past a certain threshold, so that's a point, and being within 3 minutes is a half a point. So I got a point and a half against me. 3 points gets me fired. I'm a point and a half away from getting fired, and I'm going to have to not be late and make sure I don't get fired, and that point and a half isn't going to roll off for the next 3 months. So you were held accountable. You were held accountable that you couldn't get a point and a half more, and you were held accountable for an extended amount of time after that. It wasn't like, okay, just don't do it the rest of the week. It was like, no, next week, the week after. you got to wait for those points to roll off. And I mean, there was so many ways to get fired from Disney, but every single parameter that was put in place was so that they could direct you toward personal responsibility and accountability, whether or not you had ever been taught it. Disney was trying to teach you how to be a good worker in case you forgot or never learned. And I respected Disney for that. I don't know if they do that stuff now, because the things I see at Disney right now make me really sad. But when I was working there, people would think that they were strict. I don't know what kids would do these days. We had a no tolerance policy for drinking and drugs. Didn't matter what age you were. If you were living in the college program on a Disney campus, you could not have alcohol and you could not have drugs. I think people would literally lose their minds right now. You could not have your cell phone out at any point that you were on stage working. You would have to go to the bathroom, or you would have to go on break, or you would have to go backstage. You couldn't leave your post. You couldn't just leave until you had a break, and somebody had to cover you typically. I mean, I don't know what people would do these days. I really don't, because the things that were asked of us, people are afraid to lay down the law. You have to lay down the law. You have to, or else there is no law. And lawlessness has done what for this country? Made us better? Look at what has happened with people not taking accountability and personal responsibility, and then nobody saying anything to them about it. Has that made society better? No. Has it made society safer? No. Has he made society more successful? No. I mean, there's literally a correlation in America of what we've allowed and what it's become. So, and I love that, Mike. You said, my wife's rule, no phones at the dinner table. And Mike said, I assume there's no union. So, I don't know if there's a union. There's an HR department in the company that I'm talking about. But and Mike said, Facebook is the worst. Who cares? People are using the bathroom. Crazy. And yeah, I mean, it's just, we live in this world, in this society, where we don't want to tell people that they're not doing their jobs. We don't want to tell people that, like, and those are the same people, I feel like, not in every case, but in some cases, those are the same people that will scream and yell and rant and rave and cause a commotion. Like, I can't even imagine growing up as a kid and getting my job at Wegmans and having my boss go, why were you 15 minutes late? And I just turn around and start screaming. And then he's like, okay, I'm sorry. Like, I can turn around and be a nut job, be a total, like, certifiable straitjacket person, and that's going to get me out of being in trouble. I can just scream and cry, oh my gosh, I'm so triggered. Ah! Like, triggered of what? You were 15 minutes late. Like, what? Why are we allowing people that scream and cry and say the word triggered and act like everything is dramatic and everything is abuse? Like, you realize that these are people that are throwing temper tantrums in order to get you to walk away, because they're going to, and then they're like, is he gone? And then all of a sudden there's no more tears and they're laughing and they're back on their phone. I mean, honestly, somebody who can go from hysterical crying to smiling, schizophrenic, maybe a psychopath. And we've taught society in America that if you pretend to be hurt or abused or triggered, you can get out of anything. And shame on the bosses and the teachers and the people in power that accept that behavior, because now you have a bunch of deadbeats working for you, a bunch of, like, you know, atoms taking up space, and not Adam, but Atom. Not saying a person named Adam isn't great. However, there was a person named Adam that tried to get one of my girlfriends to cheat on me. So not a big fan of that one. So, but I will say, but that, yeah. So, but I just feel like we would rather carry dead weight in our classroom and in our businesses and in our walks of life and in our relationships than to just tell somebody like, you're a problem. And if you don't stop being a problem, I'm not going to date you. I'm not going to hire you. I'm not going to keep you on my staff. I'm going to fail you in my classroom. I mean, I talked to a teacher recently about a kid that did absolutely nothing on their phone the entire time. I don't even know if they looked up for more than 2 minutes the entire time I was around them. And I said, what is this person's thing? Like, what's their deal? What type of like fake disease do they have that they because they can't learn, they can't talk, they can't give anything to society, but they can be on their cell phone. If you're in my classroom and you are on your cell phone, go to the principal's office. If you are in my classroom and you are on your cell phone every single day and you're not doing anything, you failed. Go home. Call your mommy and daddy. Because I don't need you to be in my classroom right now. Go sit in the hallway. Like, why are you even in here? See, back in the day, teachers had the power to put you in your place respectfully. Not with force, not with hurting anybody, but they had the power to say, if you're not going to give to my class, get out of my class. If you're not going to give to my business, get out of my business. If you're not going to provide anything to this relationship, please leave my home. And people are appalled of that now. Nobody wants to take personal, I shouldn't want to say nobody. Some people don't want to take personal responsibility. They want to be able to do whatever they want, however they want, whenever they want, to whomever they want. And if anybody tries to hold them accountable, they get mad. And you know what I would say to those people? Congratulations. You have found a way to manipulate people to accept mediocrity or sub-level work. But there's a lot of us out here that see you, know your tricks, know your games, and you think that you're playing chess. You're not even playing checkers. You're playing with sticks in the ground. You might be eating worms. We're playing chess. You're eating worms, sticking them up your nose. You're not playing checkers. And you most certainly are not playing chess. But we have to start calling out lack of work, lack of care, lack of responsibility, lack of accountability. Or else we're all going to be standing in long lines at grocery stores and restaurants and all these places because the people working are going to be on their cell phone or they're going to be triggered when their boss tells them to get some. Can you imagine being in a kitchen on a Friday night and being on the line as a cook? And the general manager comes in there and says, all the food is coming out an hour late, get it together. And half of the line cooks started crying. Good luck, you ain't eating for 3 hours. And you know what those cooks would do? When that restaurant closes because of all the bad reviews and all the horrible service, they're going to go work somewhere else. And then they'll get that business to close because they don't care. They just continue to move along. We have to start holding people accountable. You should hold yourself accountable and you should be personally responsible. But if you lack doing that in your life, then someone needs to come along and kind of give you a little slap of reality. And that's real. Okay? Stop using triggered. Stop saying I'm abused. Stop all this garbage. Okay? Because the reality of it all is you don't want to do your job. You don't want to give. You want to take. If we took your cell phone away, will you die? Chances are no. But if I have a 14-year-old that can't function without their cell phone, I'm going to go to those parents and saying, what did you do to this child? Did you hand them a cell phone at 4 years old? Was this their parent when they were screaming and crying and you didn't want to deal with them? See, as parents and guardians and teachers and bosses, we have to stop doing this thing where it's like, we'll do whatever it takes. Like, it's not a hostage situation. We'll do whatever it takes to get you to shut up, to get you to stop crying, to get you to stop worrying, to get you to stop being mad. So just hand you the phone. Just hand you the phone. Just hand you the phone. Just hand you the tablet. Hand you the laptop. Hand you the game. Hand you the game. Well, congratulations. Society is now detached, aloof, ignorant, irresponsible, has a lack of respect, has a lack of accountability, has a lack of morals and values, common couth, understanding. There's a lot of idiots out there now because when they cried, you threw technology at them. Technology cannot parent your child. If you refuse to, then give them up to somebody who will. If you refuse to teach, then stop teaching. And if you can't be a boss that is willing to fire somebody for making your business look terrible, that's on you, baby. That's on you. When I walk into your office and your workers are not doing anything, that reflects your leadership. People will lose respect for you based on the people you allow to work for you. People will lose respect for you based on the people that you allow yourself to date. People will lose respect for you based on you failing to hold people accountable and tell them the truth. See, we think it's never going to come back on us. It always comes back. It's always going to come back. What you allow in your life, people will see that over time. And moths gravitate to lights that don't ask them to be responsible. So don't be surprised if you let yourself get used and let yourself get abused and let yourself get used and let yourself get abused, that you don't continue to find those people. People gravitate toward where they feel safe. And if somebody is not trying in life and they know that you're never going to hold them accountable, they will want to date you, they will want to friend you, they will want to work for you, and they will want to be in your classroom because they know that you're soft. And I'm not saying don't have a kind heart and be emotional. I'm saying you need to have some thick skin in life. You need to stand up. And if you want society to function in a way where we actually care about each other and have common courtesy, you have to do your part. Stop asking somebody. I always talk about the trash rule. I don't need to take my trash out. Somebody will take it out for me. I need to take my trash. And if everybody on the street said that, the whole street would smell like garbage because nobody would take the trash out. If you keep passing the buck and passing the buck and passing the buck and passing the buck, it goes all the way around the world. What they say, if you slap someone who slaps someone who slaps someone who slaps someone, eventually you get slapped in the face. So this is your wake-up call. Figuratively and literally. Stand up for what is right. And do not feel like you have to keep people employed that are doing nothing. And that you have to keep dating people who are providing nothing in your relationship, just taking from you. You don't have to be friends with people that are energy consumers that don't bring anything to the table except for drama and strife. And you can fail people in your classroom for sitting there and doing nothing. We need to stop telling people that nothing is everything and that they did a good job. And again, and I said this years ago, the Trophy Society. First place won the championship. 15th place was eating bugs out of the ground. Why do they both get a soccer trophy? Because what that tells that kid in 15th place is that sitting on the ground, picking scabs off your leg and eating worms is just as good as playing a game competitively and winning. When you say winning is scoring goals and eating worms, society will crumble. There are winners and there are losers in life. In the NBA Finals in Game 7, the Pacers and the Thunder will not each get a trophy for being there. We have to stop normalizing mediocrity and sub-mediocrity with actually winning, with actually doing the work. Because if everything is enough, then sitting at your desk and looking at your phone is the equivalent of sending out 25 emails, making phone calls, and doing your job. And if you're in an office where everyone's looking at their phone and you're the only one sending emails, that person's going to look around and say, why am I working so hard when none of these people have to do anything and some of these people are getting paid more than me? That's reality. We have created an environment of mediocrity. The only way to get out of that is to recreate the environment. Or not to recreate the environment, to create, well, recreating the old environment, essentially in a way where we held people accountable. The environment I grew up in. And we can make positive changes to that. But my annoying moment of the week is that we need to stop treating people who do nothing and provide nothing and have no responsibility and no accountability. We need to stop patting them on the back and saying, good job. Because those are the same people in society that are annoying all of us. So stop telling them that it's good to do nothing. Shame on them for not knowing, and shame on their parents in certain cases for not teaching them. But why would you continue the ball rolling in the wrong direction? I stopped a class where I was a guest speaker because 3 kids wouldn't stop talking. It just came right out of me. They were talk, and I was talking in the class, and they talked, and the second time they did it, I said, hey, gentlemen, I need y'all to pay attention. Can you do that for me? Because I need you. Are we good? Okay. And then I kept going. That's a knee-jerk reaction from me because I was raised that if there's 20 people in the room and 3 of them are disrespecting you, if you don't do anything, if you don't say anything to these 3, you don't do anything about it, the other 17 are going to go, well, if they can talk, then I'm going to talk. And then before you know it, it's not 3 people talking, it's 5. Now it's 7. Now it's 9. Now you've lost the classroom. Mediocrity spreads just as much as people that are contagious that attack the day. You got people performing and going out there and giving the best that they possibly can, and you commend them. That is going to push and create a domino effect of other people wanting to do a good job. That's why teachers gave stickers, right? Did a good job, get a sticker. Do a great job, get a sticker that has a cent to it. So there was an incentivized way of saying, like, the better you do, the more I'm going to commend you, the more we're going to bring you up in front of the class and clap for you. Well, if we're bringing people up to the front of the class and clapping them for sitting there on their cell phone, we have completely lost control of society. Let's get it back. The annoying moment of the week, proudly presented by Carvel DeWitt, 4322 East Genesee Street in DeWitt, New York. It is what happy tastes like. Coming up in just a moment, lead, learn, evolve, ad-lib, and deliver, proudly presented by Chick-fil-A Cicero. This is Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios. We'll be back right after this. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you. Looking for your next ride? Look no further than Great Lakes Honda City, located on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Serving our community for decades, their new and pre-owned vast array of vehicles are available to you Monday through Saturday on site. To search from home, shop at GreatLakesHondaCity.com. Call 315-365-5576 to set up an appointment. That's 315-365-5576 for Great Lakes Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Great cars, great people, Great Lakes.
All right, you need to come out here and get yourself the Brooklyn Pickle. I was talking about this with one of my buddies. I was like, yo, there's no better sandwich in the state of New York than the Brooklyn Pickle. And now that I found out that they're going down to North Carolina, we are taking over your taste buds everywhere you are, wherever you're going to be. You need to get yourself out to the Brooklyn Pickle. Pinehurst, you just realized that you found yourself the best sandwich shop that you're ever going to have. This is a glorious moment. It's a blessing to your community. You're welcome. Brooklyn in the house, baby. Go over to the Brooklyn Pickle. You already know what it is.
You heard the man. Head to Brooklyn Pickle Pinehurst on 1788 Old Morgantown Road in Southern Pines, North Carolina. And a welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. Appreciate you being here inside the Great Lakes Honda City studios, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and appreciate your patience today. Jumping into Lead, Learn, Evolve, Ad-Lib, and Deliver, proudly presented by Chick-fil-A Cicero on 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, New York. Today's topic in Lead: when God is your best friend. Man, that's something. When God is your best friend. Now, some people believe in God and some people don't. In today's American society, it feels like if you don't believe in God, you want to tell us what to do. Well, if you want to have the peace of someone not screaming in your face that you don't believe in God, then don't scream in our face when we do. I choose to believe in God for a lot of reasons. And all those reasons lead back to appreciation for my life, thankfulness for where I am. And I believe in God because I appreciate God. I believe in God because I respect God. I believe in God because I know I didn't create myself. I believe in God because I have seen him, heard him, felt him, know him. And it's something that is in my heart. It's real. Stick said in the last thing here, we are a hold your hand society, but not by choice in some cases. Good on you. Disrespect is an ever-growing problem. Amen, Sticks. Appreciate you watching and listening. I believe in God not because I have to, but because I choose to. And some people say, well, why do you believe in this invisible person in the chair, in some chair floating in space? Why do you watch a movie of a person floating in space? Thanos made, having the Avengers and Thanos, those movies made billions and billions of dollars. He was a dude floating in a chair that thought he was a god. Why'd you watch that? He's purple. So, you know what I mean? So that's a funny answer, but I believe in God because I know deep in my heart of hearts that he made me. I know that he loves me. I know I wouldn't be here without him. I know that. I know that. I know that when I call on God, he answers the phone. He may not give me the answer that I want. He may not answer me right back in that second in something that I hear. But as I've gotten older, I believe that he does answer. Because, I was just saying that. It was just coming out of my mouth that I'm like, oh, he doesn't answer me right away. And it's like, no, he does. Because bare minimum, God picks up the phone and says, hey, Dan, I love you. How you doing? So God being my best friend, do I have those that I call my best friend? Do I have brothers and sisters in life? Yes. Do I have people that I will call my best friend? Yes. Do I call my little baby Lily my best friend? Yes. Do I call my mom my first ever best friend? Yes. When I look at God, God is my best friend above all. The one above all. The true one above all. And why is he my best friend? He's the only one that's been there every single time. He has never called me a name, disrespected me, made me feel alone. He is the only one that got me out of a black hole. He sometimes is the only one that heard my cry. He is the first one that I want to slap hands with and high five when something good happens. He is the first one I want to talk to when I wake up and the last one I want to talk to when I go to sleep. He is the one that I trust completely more than anything else. He is the voice that I always ask to hear. He is the direction that I need. He is the way. He is the truth. He is the life. Some people believe and some people don't. And that's your prerogative. Shout out Bobby Brown. I choose to believe because not believing in God would make me a very ignorant, irrational, illogical person. To live the life that I've lived and experience the things that I've experienced and the consistency of how God comes to me, how I see him in daily life, it would make less sense for me to say God doesn't exist than to say God does exist based on everything that I've experienced. And some people say, because a lot of people, I feel like, I should say some people. I feel like some people don't believe in God because tragedy. Well, if God existed, then why did my mom die? If God existed, why did my brother get cancer? If God existed, why did this person get hit by a train? If God existed, why did this person break my heart? If God existed, why didn't I get this job? God knows how much I wanted that job. If I can tell you anything about living life, if God had given me the women that I wanted to date in high school, I may never have worked for Disney, which means I would have never lived down there. Well, I may have never worked for Disney, which means I wouldn't have made the connection, which means I wouldn't have kept that connection, which means I arguably would have never worked down there, which means I would have never lived in Florida, which means I never would have worked at ESPN Radio, which means I never would have made connections with certain people and certain teams that I hold to this day. Simply, if God had given me the girl that I had a crush on in high school, I may have never traveled to certain places, lived in other places, gotten certain jobs, and if I never would have had those things, I would have never come to the point of wanting to start my own business at 26. It stands to reason that if God had given me my high school crush, the dominoes would not have fallen to the point where I'm sitting with you right now, owning my own business, doing my show from my own studio. So, yeah, I saw her at a reunion. Yeah, she's still pretty. So what? You know what I mean? Would I have given up my life just to be with a pretty girl? There's a lot of pretty girls. That's what you realize in life. You're like, oh man, they're so pretty. They're so handsome. What am I going to do? They broke up with me. They don't want to date me. It's like, there are so many pretty people. You know what's harder to find than a pretty person or a handsome person? A good person. A person that will stay in the relationship to work through problems. A person that will rub your back without asking for something in return. A person who will not want to barter with you. If you do this, I'll do this. A person who will drive without you having to say, I'm tired, honey, can you drive tonight? A person who will buy you flowers or dance with you when there's no music playing. A person who will ask how your day was and put their phone down and actually listen to hear and not just ask the question because they know that it's what you like to have asked to you. A person who will ask you to take a look at yourself and constructively work with you to get rid of bad habits that you may have. A person that will stick up for you in rooms that you're not in conversations you never will ever know were had. Right? Well, God is that to me. I have never had someone who 100% of the time I can put my head on, I can lay down, I can talk about my day, know that they're going to hear me out, know that they're going to truly listen, know that they're going to be constructive and not destructive, know that they're not going to have their cell phone in their hand. Someone who shows up every single day. And if some people want to say it's an imaginary friend that you made up, hey, if that's what you want to believe, then that's what you want to believe. There are people that dress up like cats and want to poop in litter boxes in the middle of a classroom. There are crazy things going on in society. Me believing in God is not crazier than you pooping like a cat and wearing a towel, you psychopath. And so, I don't even want to say you psychopath because that's calling someone a name. I blame the parents for allowing it to happen, and I blame the school or the job for allowing that to happen. I shouldn't call the person a psychopath. They might have some trauma in their life that they have to work through, so my apologies. You're not a psychopath. You may just have been misdirected. God forgive me for calling them that. I want to believe that everybody can be helped. And I want to believe that no matter how far they go down the rabbit hole, we can all find our way back home. I not only believe in God, but call God my true and total number one, before anything else, best friend. Because it would be disrespectful for me to not consider God to be the best that there is. There is no one that is infallible except for God. There are things in society right now that in order to believe them, you would have to believe that God is fallible, God makes mistakes, God is a human being, God is not perfect, and God is just like the rest of us. And none of that is true. So that's why I can't support certain things that are in our society right now, because I'm not going to sit there and tell you that God is perfect in all senses except for in your life where God made a mistake because you think he did. I believe in God, not because I have to, but because I want to. Because I truly know my Maker. And I'm getting to know him better every day. And I respect God. I value God. And I know that I wouldn't even be alive today if it weren't for God. Number one, because God created me. And number two, because there were so many times where I didn't love myself. And he loved me through that. So, if you want to know why I believe, because there is no other compass in my life that has ever pointed me in the right direction every single time, except for him. That's why I believe. With that being said, we're going to jump into the top dog of the week, proudly presented by K-9 Kamp Dog Daycare. I want to thank Chick-fil-A Cicero for lead. Today's topic in Learn, Evolve, Ad-lib, and Deliver is the topic of when God is your best friend. And God, I love you, and I'm happy that you're my best friend. Thank you for keeping me honest and true to myself. Top dog of the week now. Top dog of the week, proudly presented by K-9 Kamp Dog Daycare, 228 Old Bridge Street in East Syracuse. Go and visit them today, and you can get more information by going to K-9 Kamp.com. That's K-9 Kamp.com. You can also call 315-437-7110, 315-437-7110 to talk with their staff today. Thank you to Lorraine and Chad and everyone at K-9 Kamp Dog Daycare for the tireless work you do to make sure that our dogs are taken care of when they are in your sight and in your wonderful location that is centrally located to the highway, the thruway, right off of Erie Boulevard. So make sure you go and see them today. When you entrust someone in someone else's care, you always want to know that they're okay. And there's no other place that I would send you for dog daycare than K-9 Kamp Dog Daycare. Top dog of the week for this week, got to be the Pacers, right? The Indiana Pacers, man, doing their thing. They got out to an early lead. They got after it. They stayed after it. And at halftime, it looked like it was going to be theirs. And I was hanging out with my buddy Adam, and him and I were talking. And he goes, well, it looks like, there's going to be a game 7. And I said to him, I was like, hold on. I was like, I want to believe that. I want to believe that for the Pacers. I picked the Pacers to win the series, although I respect both of these teams incredibly. And if either one of them, whoever wins, I'm going to be proud for them, because for either one of them, it's their first ever championship. Like hoping for a Game 7, of course. And just because, as a fan, I want there to be a Game 7. I picked the Pacers, so I want there to be a Game 7. And seeing this game was like 64-42, and I'm like, okay, this is great. And Adam was like, oh, it looks like, they got this locked up. I said, hey, there's a second half. They should have won Game 4. They, that trickled into Game 5. They lost Game 4 and Game 5, so I'm a little concerned. 97, which I'm so excited that we got it. Game 7 is going to be on ABC at 8 p.m. Eastern Time this Sunday, June 22nd. So I know where I am going to be. The lowest price ticket that I'm seeing right now is just shy of $1,000. So to those that are like, this isn't really a series that people want to watch, it's like, yes, it is. So I'm giving it up to the Indiana Pacers, plain and simple. They forced a Game 7 by coming out in Game 6 and just taking control of the game. And it's one thing to take control. It's another thing to keep control. Much respect to the Indiana Pacers. Top dogs of the week, proudly presented by K-9 Kamp Dog Daycare and K-9 Campground. Dog boarding. God bless and Godspeed to the Pacers and the Thunder, as we know that whoever wins this one, they both fought like heck to come to the end of the line, and I cannot wait to see it. With that being said, speaking of cannot wait to see, Bud Alderman's going to be joining me in just a moment, fellow sports writer, speaking on the House settlement and the future of collegiate athletics, coming up here after this fast break from Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios.
Hi, this is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the whole frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating at 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday in-store and always online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond, order anywhere, anytime at maandpaspopcorn.com. Stop in to get a tin at Ma and Pa's on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York to get your half-price refills for the rest of your life. Come to Ma and Pa's for your holiday gift giving for family, friends, employees, and clients. And remember, for fundraising and events, to call 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you?
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. He kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
And a welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. We appreciate you being here inside of the Great Lakes Honda City Studios. And as we are here this morning on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, it is my honor to have on the broadcast with me once again Mr. Bud Alderman, who's going to be joining me here on the show, picture in picture, to speak on the world of collegiate athletics and what is currently going on in the world of collegiate athletics following the House settlement. Bud and I met each other years ago at the ACC kickoff in coverage of ACC football, and Bud is now picture in picture with me, fellow sports writer, weighing in on the House settlement and the future of what we know when it comes to the student athlete. Bud, how you doing today?
Good morning, Dan. Doing good. How about you?
Doing very well. And so, Bud, I mean, just to jump right into it, essentially, the House settlement, your thoughts reflecting on what that settlement means for college?
Well, Dan, like I've mentioned to you before, I just think this might be the end of college football the way we know it. Obviously, it's just another pro sport now, in my estimation.
Yeah, and you when you look at this, you look at college football, like you said, it may never be the same as we know it to be right now because of this settlement. And we know that with the money coming out and with schools being asked, the schools that opt in and the autonomy group, I believe, as part of this settlement, having to opt in, we're in a situation where they now have to find $20.5 million every year to pay to their student athletes. We would imagine that the breakdown of this is going to go in its majority to the world of college football. So essentially something that we were told was never going to be, right? Never going to pay a student athlete. That was never going to happen. We're never going to see pay for play. Boosters couldn't do this stuff. Somebody couldn't come up, shake your hand, and put money in your hand. Things were happening in the past, Bud, but people were turning a blind eye to it. NIL comes in, courtesy of California, and now there's this, well, they can't get paid to play, but they can get paid for their name, image, and likeness, which all has to do with, it was like a loophole of saying, we're not paying them to play the sport, but we're paying them because they play the sport. Well, now this House settlement is directly going to pay student athletes. With you covering athletics for as long as you have, thoughts on the fact that the pay-for-play model, which we were told was never going to happen, essentially is right in front of us?
Well, you're absolutely right, Dan. And I can remember, like you said, the boosters. It goes way back. I can remember back in the 60s and 70s when, if you were a booster, yeah, you could talk to prospective high school players. You could call them, you could send them letters and stuff, but you couldn't offer them anything. And best bet was if you knew someone at the university in charge of recruiting, you say, this guy's interested in playing, turn the name over and walk away from it. I mean, you saw how many schools got in trouble back in the days. Look at SMU, be given, they were given the death penalty, and how many years did they go without football? And nowadays that wouldn't even matter.
Yeah. And like you said, I mean, SMU to have to pay that, I mean, do they look back to the NCAA now and say, like, if you're going to be giving money back to student athletes and you're going to find ways to I think they're paying back, they're trying to pay in some way, shape, or form from 2016 to 2024. If you were a student athlete and you weren't involved in this, obviously the House settlement that's come down, that they want to like apologize, pay. But what do you do to SMU from 1985? I mean, how do you right the ship of a school that we can argue when they gave themselves the death penalty, that for over a decade, over a couple decades, still reeling from that? I mean, until they had Chad Morris get them to a postseason game, and then after that, we saw that Sonny Dykes did it, and Rhett Lashley's doing a good job at SMU now. before any of that happened, we can argue that that death penalty did not affect them for a year. It affected them for over a decade post. It seemed like they just couldn't catch up. And now SMU is a strong program, and I've been able to cover them for at least a decade now, and I can respect what each of these coaches have done in recent history. But Bud, we can argue that the death penalty that SMU served in college football was something that was a domino effect in a negative light for a long time.
That's exactly right. And you can even say other schools too. How many schools were put on like 1 or 2 years probation, lost scholarships and all that, and they may have been very strong, but it took them more than a year or 2 or 3 or 4 to get back to prominence again. And I mean, that happened to a lot of your major universities.
Yeah, and when we see these things that have happened here, and the NCAA putting certain schools on probation or having a show cause penalty for coaches and whatnot, were you surprised when we look back at Penn State and we look at what happened with Joe Paterno, and that they took his wins away and then he passed away and they gave it back to him, but taking his wins away, taking a statue down, and putting, I think they said that the school couldn't collect their money from college football for a year, which was, from what I had seen, around $60 million. So you're not making that $60 million. You got a certain amount of years where you have less scholarships. Your school is obviously under a huge negative light nationally and internationally. But I feel like it almost didn't faze Penn State. And so when I think about punishments that have come down, I don't really know, from my point of view and from what I've experienced speaking with student athletes that were being recruited by Penn State and other schools at the same time, I feel like, yeah, Penn State lost money. Yeah, they lost scholarships. But, Bud, I don't know if they really suffered. Because when I talked to the kids, they just talked about how much they love James Franklin.
Well, I know James. I've worked with James when he was at Vanderbilt, and James is a great coach, and I'm sure he put a very positive attitude out there towards those recruits, and that's why he was able to keep them and actually keep the momentum going. Closer to home for me, I think of Bobby Bowden. Yeah. He had 12 victories stripped from his title, which I still to this day believe that he deserves to have those back. That was a self-reported violation. It was not just targeted towards student athletes. Every student in those classes had the opportunity. It was an open book exam, and everybody had the answers. So it wasn't like something that was just targeted towards athletes. So Bobby's passed on now a few years, and why can't he get his 12 victories back?
Well, and to go a little bit deeper into that, because I know that you've covered the Florida State Seminoles so closely for so long, what else can you say to that scenario and that situation? Why do you feel like Bobby Bowden, Joe Paterno, for everything that went on there, he paid the price and then they restored it to him. He couldn't enjoy it because he had already passed on. So in the case of Bobby Bowden, are you seeing this? Are you seeing the NCAA treat different institutions differently, different coaches differently? To go a little bit deeper into the essence of what's going on, if Paterno now has his legacy intact, what are your thoughts on the fact that Bobby, who has passed on as well, is still without these victories?
Well, the big thing is the NCAA and the fact that the Seminole name. How many years have they been trying to strip the Seminole name away from Florida State? And, they have the backing of the Seminole tribe. And, for this is happening at other institutions as well that use a name of Native American teams, or Native American tribes, I should say, for their team. Yeah. And so how many other ones have fought this? But Florida State was the key one out there, as far as I'm concerned, because of their prominence at the time. And they fought that tooth and nail. And I think they're just, playing hard as far as not trying to restore these to Florida State and Bobby Bowden because of their fight, I guess, against Florida State for the use of the Seminole name.
Well, and when we look at that, and I love that you brought that up, Bud, the Seminole name for Florida State, obviously connecting to Native Americans, there has been a push in our society to change a bunch of names. There is something going on in the state of New York. I don't know if people know this, but in the state of New York, there has been something rumbling over the last few years that high schools will have to change their names if they can be connected in any way, shape, or form to Native American. If hearing the name makes you think of a Native American, the school has to change their name. There's a school in my community, Liverpool. They're called the Warriors. Their logo is a Spartan. The Spartan is not Native American, but the name Warrior is what the state of New York is associating with Native Americans. So they've told schools like Liverpool that they have to change their Warrior name, even though their logo is a white man who is in a Spartan uniform.
That just shows you how absurd these rulings are, or I guess I'm going to say it's a woke society. They're, they want to change everything. Look at how in general, not even sports related, how so many of these schools across the nation have been required to take away former presidents' names and stuff off their buildings. And, that to me, they were honoring our forefathers, and they're trying to take that away, and they want to control what a sports team can be called when, like you say, there's nothing negative towards that. A Spartan with a Warrior name. Well, Spartans could be Warriors. The high school I went to, we were called the Spartans.
Yeah.
Still, and I don't know. To me, it's absurd.
Well, and to the point that we're going on with the Seminoles, people that have covered Florida State can see things that other people don't know. And again, like you talked about woke society, people that want to change everything, and then once everything's changed and they succeed in doing that, they're going to want to change this and change that. And I just look at it and say, you must be someone that has a lot of time on your hands. Now, Florida State, if you have been to a game and you have been on campus, which, Bud, you cover Florida State, I cover Florida State, I have physically been there for multiple games, and I know something that a lot of people don't know, and I'm sure you're going to laugh when I say this because I'm sure you know it too. Not only is the Seminole tribe connected to Florida State, but in the press box where the media are allowed to go, members of the Seminole tribe are also welcomed into the press box, and they're welcomed into the start of a college football game on campus at Florida State. They are a part of the celebration of Florida State football. So the Seminole tribe is involved in the opening ceremony, if you will, of each home game, and they're welcomed into the press box. So people from the outside saying, you got to get rid of this Seminole name, you're disrespecting Native Americans and taking advantage of them, are not fully understanding the fact that these Native Americans are involved in the celebration of the team that they have the name of, and they're actually welcomed in to the press box with the media. I'd love to get your thoughts.
Well, that's exactly right, Dan. And just like the pregame ceremony and throughout the games, you've got Chief Osceola riding Renegade. The costume or the clothing that Chief Osceola wears has been designed by the Seminole tribe. They're in full agreement that the name needs to stay. There are scholarships given every year to the Seminole tribe, full scholarships for Seminole heritage. And we've had Seminole players. I believe it's just the last year or two we've signed a Seminole tribe member to a athletic scholarship for football. I believe you probably are aware of that. A few years ago, there was a young man. He was a walk-on. He was a Seminole, but he actually caught a touchdown pass in a game, and he was the first Seminole player that was a Seminole to catch a touchdown pass or score a touchdown for Florida State.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, that history and that connection. And a member of the Seminole Tribe of Florida will be the first member of the tribe to play football at Florida State on scholarship. Speaking of Gregory Zay Thomas, who is joining the team here in 2025, which is a beautiful thing and an honor to see something like that happen and see everything come full circle. But again, people making decisions that don't really know what they're talking about, they just want to disrupt society. I walked into the press box behind Seminole Tribe members. So it's like when you're and I tell people this all the time, when you are physically on the ground somewhere and you're talking to the people and you're in the environment, it doesn't matter what the media says. It doesn't matter what somebody tells you from the outside. It doesn't matter what somebody cries and whines about. When you're physically experiencing it, you know it. And I can say that about New York City. There's things that people say, oh, these are happening in New York City. Oh, these people are just lying. I've been to New York City multiple times recently, and I've spoken with people living in New York City about the conditions of New York City, and they have told me what's going on. And it had nothing to do with political parties, nothing to do with anything like that. They're like, this is happening. This is where it's happening. This is why we're frustrated. So I would always enlighten people that if you're going to complain about something, you should probably know about it before you complain about it, because the Seminole Tribe is honored by Florida State. And I will tell you this, I've never said this to you, Bud, but obviously I'm from Syracuse and I love my hometown. I'm impartial when it comes to broadcasting. I don't pick Syracuse to win every single game. If I don't think they're going to win every single game, I'm fair. And when it comes to Florida State, every time I've been on campus and I have watched the Chief Osceola, the come out on the horse and charge one way, charge the other way, charge back, come up on the horse and take the spear that's on fire and slam it into the ground. I have said this and gone on record, and I will say this to you, Bud. I said, even if for that moment I am a Florida State fan, every time I see that, because I have never seen a pregame ceremony that is more incredible than watching somebody fly out on a horse, bring that horse up into the air, and then slam a spear on fire into the ground. I don't know if there's anything cooler in college football than that moment.
Well, that's the way I feel about it. It's just a very touching moment. It's a tradition that should never end, as far as I'm concerned, and that's why Florida State has fought the NCAA for all these years, that we're not going to do away with this. And letters from the Seminole Tribe, same way. So let's just forget it. They're the Seminoles. They're going to remain the Seminoles. And let's talk about this maybe foolish lawsuit that is about to ruin. What are we having? The minor leagues? We're going to have the minor leagues for the NFL.
Yeah.
And then what about the other divisions? Division 2, Division 3, NAIA, are they the minor leagues then for the Division 1? And what is it? The settlement said Division 1. Is that Division 1 FBS or Division 1 FBS and FCS? Where's the determination there?
Well, and I think, and like I said, when I was going over these last couple months, there was a caveat to the House settlement that the autonomy group of the four conferences, the Big 12, the Big 10, the SEC, and the ACC, and I guess the PAC is somehow involved in this, but that the autonomy group had to agree to this. So that the ACC that you and I have covered for so many, they had no choice. So in order for this House settlement to come through, the autonomy conferences had to say, yeah, we're going to do this thing. Now, speaking with conferences outside of the autonomy group, they have told me something I did not know, which is that they did not have to agree to this. So the autonomy group has to agree to this pay-for-play $20.5 million, trying to find this with every institution every year. The schools outside of the ACC, the SEC, the Big 12, the Big 10, and potentially the Pac-12, or whatever the Pac is now, they do not have to agree to these roster cuts, and they don't have to agree to this $20.5 million that comes out, from what I've been told from conferences outside of this. Your thoughts on that? Because you just said, like, what is it? Is it FBS? Is it FCS? Well, one of the conferences I talked to is FCS football. So I'd love to get your take on this, the fact that the autonomy group had to agree to it. So if you're FSU, if you're Clemson, if you're Syracuse within the ACC, you have no choice. So they had to agree for this House settlement to come down. But then outside of it, you can be a conference that opts in or opts out. And if you opt out, you don't have to give your players money, but you also don't have to cut student athlete scholarships. So I'd love to get your take.
Well, this, so-called autonomy group, who is this really? We started with the Power Five. Then right now they're calling it the Power Four.
Right.
But I in my opinion, in being here in Nashville and SEC country, I believe the Big Ten and the SEC believe themselves to be the Power Two, and they're the ones that are steering this whole scenario. I mean, and again, that's my opinion, but I'd like your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I predicted over 3 years ago that the SEC would eventually go off on its own and form its own league. I believe that the Big Ten, and I adjusted that prediction to include the Big Ten when the Big Ten decided to take 4 West Coast schools. Because if you look at the map, and I did a whole breakdown of this on the show, if you take the map of the United States, the SEC has the southern middle and the southeast, and they come all the way up to that like Mason-Dixon line area. Well, the Big Ten has the Midwest and the Northeast, and with those West Coast schools of USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington, the two conferences combined account for almost all of America except for this little slip that's heading toward the West Coast, which does not have any logos that would make you think these teams are going to win. And anybody that's going to be winning a national championship that I would imagine, right? Outside of something happening that would be atypical. And it's no disrespect to these places, but the Idahos and the Arizonas and whatnot, that's the only area that's not covered by the SEC and the Big Ten. So when they made that move that made no sense, and they're going to have games that are 30 hours driving, 40 hours driving apart that are within conference, that you have to go over 2,000 miles to play a conference game, and you have to cross multiple time zones. I think that move was made by the Big Ten to say to the SEC, when you move, let us come with you. I have long believed the SEC does not need the NCAA. I now believe the SEC and the Big Ten don't need the NCAA. And if you don't believe me, look at the $1 billion deal that the Big Ten made in their TV rights. I honestly do, going off what you said about there being a power two, so to speak. I don't like using the power thing because it's a media term, but I do believe that there are two conferences that are running the country, and that's the SEC and the Big Ten. And to lead even more into that, if people think that I'm making up a conspiracy, there was a model allegedly of taking the college football playoff and going from 12 to 14. And of those 14, there would only be 2 schools that get a bye every year. And they were going to give those to an SEC and a Big Ten school every single year, regardless of record, regardless of any other conference. Allegedly, there was a model in place that the SEC and the Big Ten would be the only conferences that could sit out the first round of a 14-team playoff. That, to me, has been the egregious party foul of saying, if there's any credence to that, then you're basically saying, hey, we're trying to make them happy. If you look at how they're ranked year to year, if you look at the amount of spots that were given to both of those conferences in this college football playoff expansion, if you look at how many spots are given to them in the NCAA tournament, the country has gone toward the SEC and the Big Ten. They give them the rankings. They give them the preseason rankings that really nobody deserves, but especially in a lot of cases they don't. They have given them COVID rankings of putting the Big Ten 6 weeks into the season with records of 0-0 in the top 5, top 8, top 25 in the country. Rankings, exposure, spots in tournaments, it is made abundantly clear by the College Football Playoff and the NCAA that they are doing everything in their power to keep the SEC and the Big Ten happy. And why are they doing that, Bud? Because the SEC and Big Ten are dangling the carrot of we can leave at any time. And so I believe that everything is being done to keep them happy right now, fully knowing that they don't need the NCAA and they can form their own league, in my opinion.
Well, I totally agree with you, Dan. I can remember this came up, I'm trying to think, 15, 20 years ago, where they, the way things were leaning then. When this expansion really started, when was that? Early 90s, when these teams started adding, SEC started building their footprint, and Big Ten expanded, we're no longer the Big Ten, basically.
Yeah.
And, take a Maryland, for example, which you and I have probably covered Maryland over the years. Yeah. Maryland playing Syracuse or Maryland playing Florida State. They were a founding member of the ACC. Why did the Big Ten take them? Not because they were of their prowess or anything, but because of the media market. Same with Rutgers. What are they? A New York media market, correct?
Yeah, Rutgers out in the New Jersey area, that New York, New Jersey market. I mean, obviously, to take a Rutgers has never made sense with the Big Ten. To take a Maryland has never made sense. If you ask people the best basketball games that they've seen with Maryland, they probably say Maryland against Duke. And if you ask people the best moments of Rutgers football, they would say Rutgers UConn, Rutgers Syracuse, Rutgers Pitt. And so there really is no, to this day, over a decade later, there's no geographical sense to it. They're not winning anything. And it really doesn't fit to this point. And I feel like we've seen that in the expansion of a bunch of conferences. What I would say back to you, Bud, is to be in the world of journalism, do you think at this point it's laughable that we call the Big 12 the Big 12 when they have 16? We call the Big 10 the Big 10 when they have 18? I mean, we're at a point right now. I mean, even the ACC has West Coast teams. It's the Atlantic Coast Conference with Pacific Coast teams. Are we in a place right now where you find it kind of funny that the numbers don't make sense, the name doesn't make sense in a lot of cases, that realignment has essentially put us in a place where geography and numbers, how do you wake up in the morning and talk about the Big 10 when it's almost the Big 20?
Well, you're exactly right. And I felt that over the years. I mean, I just, when they expanded, you used to have the Pac-8, then they became the Pac-10, then the Pac-12. Like you mentioned, the ACC, Atlantic Coast Conference. No, they're now the All Coast Conference. When they expanded into California and SMU in Dallas, I felt, I always felt that the ACC was unique because of the fact that every team in the ACC prior to this last expansion were all Eastern time zone teams. So when you turned on the TV to watch an ACC matchup and a conference matchup, you were watching it on now, and you're up till after midnight to watch those games. I'm just curious, going back to this settlement thing too. You and I will be in Charlotte in a few weeks, and wonder what Jim Phillips, how he's going to address this. Will this be a key part in his opening statements?
Yeah, I mean, getting to know Jim over the years and building a relationship with him on and off the air, I would say there's a lot of things that him and I care about that go far beyond the current college model and the focus on money and lack of responsibility. I think he will discuss it. And I think that obviously it'll be a topic that is he might even say, like, I know the elephant in the room, and, let's break down what's happening. But I think he will also continue to go back after that or before that, to academics, to what the ACC does pride itself on, to the things that are important to them, to defining unity and helping people feel equal, the member institutions, the importance of that. I don't think that he is going to move himself off of who he is. And that's something that I've respected of Jim Phillips. And it's something I respect of John Swafford, is that sitting with them, we would have conversations that are very blunt, very real. I spoke with John Swafford years ago, and I said, John, I'm the son of a lawyer. You chose the name autonomy. Autonomy means self-governing. So essentially, the Pac-12, the Big 12, the Big 10, the ACC, and the SEC are telling the NCAA, we are self-governing inside of your governance. So doesn't that mean that at any given time you can break away? And John Swafford told me not once but twice, candidly, in one-on-one interviews, sitting with each other, it's not out of the realm of possibility. It's something that we have discussed. And that was years ago. So, I do think it'll be a topic at ACC kickoff because, obviously it's the giant, massive elephant on steroids in the room. But I also think that Jim Phillips is going to remind people who the ACC are, why they are who they are, and what's important to the ACC. And I do commend him for that. And he said it. He goes, I'm sure some people will laugh me off when I talk about education, but it's important to me. So I do think he'll talk about it, Bud, and that 90% of the questions in the room are going to be about it. But I do think that Jim Phillips will remind us that the ACC dares to be different in areas where the student still counts in student athlete.
Well, you're exactly right. I got to know Jim when he was AD at Northwestern. And then, of course, coming to the ACC, he and I talk off the record quite often. I've met him in the press boxes and when he's been at different games. In fact, I ran into him a couple years ago when I was covering a Vanderbilt Wake Forest game, and at Vanderbilt, and Jim and I had a good talk. And Jim and I had a pretty good talk about the lawsuits involving Clemson and Florida State, and how he said, Bud, I know you're a Florida State guy, but this has nothing to do with you or Florida State. It's a legal matter, and we don't need to really go into it. And again, I think, like I say, he's going to address this situation at the meetings, but he's going to try to shy away from it. And again, there will be a lot of questions, and I have a lot of questions too. Obviously, some teams like Clemson, Florida State, maybe even Louisville, I don't know, some teams that have had some success, SMU, a new one in there, but SMU is a big money school, I believe. But some of these schools, are they going to be, yes, they get a share of they're in the revenue sharing, which that's going to have to go towards paying players.
Yeah.
How's it going to affect these teams' operations, though, their everyday operations, and how they maintain their programs? I think that's a key thing that a lot of people aren't looking at, is how are these marginal schools going to pay their everyday expenses?
Well, yeah, how is a Wake Forest that doesn't have a lot of, their enrollment is far less than Miami. It's a harder school to get into. How are they going to function with that, right? So how is Syracuse, which is a private institution, going to function with public schools? So, it's state schools. So I feel there's a lot that goes into this. My first question, no matter how much money it was where are the schools going to find this money? So I do want to get into a couple things before I let you go, and to get to that House settlement and what is being asked. As I stated before, all the current members of the SEC, the Big 10, the Big 12, the ACC, and whatever the PAC is now, are part of this revenue sharing model. The NCAA makes clear the obligations schools have for the settlement. They are ensure that any additional payments or benefits being provided comply with the benefit cap and cap related rules, policies, and procedures. Report to the cap management reporting system, which is called CAPS, all licenses between the institution and its student athletes for name, image, and likeness, and any other payments or benefits provided beyond what was permitted by NCAA Division I rules as of October 7th, 2024, assuming such benefits are otherwise permitted by NCAA rules. Report all additional benefits that count against the benefits cap to CAPS and complete the annual attestation by September 1st after the close of each academic year. Adhere to the established roster limits. Agree that the designated enforcement entity, i.e. the College Sports Commission, has the authority to enforce NCAA bylaws adopted as part of the settlement, like roster limits, additional payments and benefits, and non-institutional NIL. So the question becomes, is there a cap to how much revenue a school can share? Now, schools are permitted to distribute up to 22% of the average revenue between the Power 5 conferences from media rights, ticket sales, and sponsorships. This is known as the revenue sharing cap benefits cap, and is the maximum dollar amount a school may provide to its student athletes during an academic year. Now, the revenue sharing cap under the Newhouse settlement, the benefits cap for 2025-26 is set for $20.5 million and is expected to rise. A 4% bump is expected every year for the first 3 years, with a full recalculation after year 4. So how are these schools going to afford it? And it's supposed to keep going up here. Now, it's calculated first by participating schools from the 5 conferences plus Notre Dame that enter their revenue into 8 categories: ticket sales, input revenue from participation in away games, media rights revenue, NCAA distributions and grants, non-media conference distributions, direct revenue from participation in bowl games, as well as conference distributions from bowl revenues, and athletics department revenues from sponsorships, royalties, licensing agreements, and advertisements. So the cap is then found by pulling 22% from the sum of the revenue generated by the 8 defined categories. So you put these autonomy conferences and Notre Dame in a bowl, you take all this money from the 8 revenue pieces, and then you take 22% from the sum of the revenue guaranteed, and you find that average from what I'm seeing here. And so that's what it looks like. Now, the other question, Bud, is do NIL deals count toward the revenue sharing? It says yes and no. NIL deals paid from a source outside of the school or a third party does not count toward the revenue sharing cap. Other funds distributed from student assistance funds or third-party grants awards are also exempt from the benefit cap up to a certain amount. However, if a player is receiving funds directly from a school for NIL purposes, that money will be counted against the benefits cap. So you can still generate more if a player is to make a deal with a third party outside of the school itself. But there's a lot of information there. There's a lot to break down. There's a lot that I have to read and reread over the next few weeks to really understand all of this. But your thoughts, Bud, on now we have a cap. We're looking at the autonomy group conferences, which are also called the power, but the autonomy is a legislative term. Power is just a media term. So we're looking at the autonomy group. We're looking at 8 different sources of income. We're putting it all together. We're taking 22% of that, and that's how they generate $20.5 million. And NIL still exists, but it exists as kind of a ring outside of this new benefits cap that is kind of hovering around collegiate athletics. So your take, we now have a cap, we have pay for play, so we essentially don't have amateurism anymore.
Well, you're exactly right. There are no more amateurs. It sounds like every player is going to be paid that are participating in the programs. How's the breakdown going to be? Obviously, football and basketball are probably going to be the main earners because they're really the only 2 revenue sports per se. I don't think baseball, I know they charge to get in their games, but I don't think there's enough revenue in baseball that actually pays for those programs. As far as the NIL, I know at this point, these players, they go out on their own and set up their own NIL deals. I was not aware. I've been trying to read into it. I was not aware that some schools set up the NIL deals for certain, and it's probably star players. I think of this offer, if it's legitimate, the kid from South Carolina, the quarterback there, he supposedly was offered $8 million to leave South Carolina and transfer to another school. Have you heard anything about that, or was that a legitimate offer? Do you know that?
Going back to, and I believe that the gentleman that we're talking about here is, when it comes to NIL, I think we're talking about a guy that I actually spoke to, and yeah, it was Lenoris Sellers, a quarterback that was committed originally to Syracuse before Fran Brown, and spoke with his brother, and he was supposed to come to Syracuse. He's from South Carolina. He decided to back out of Syracuse and go to South Carolina. Now, there was allegedly, he has received several multi-million-dollar NIL offers to enter the transfer portal, which, by the way, is tampering for those that care, including a 2-year, $8 million contract, but he turned it down. And now he talked about why he broke it down, why he did not take this deal that you just brought up here. So he did. So I will tell you what he had to say here about this quote. So I want to make sure that I get to the right piece of this. So he was offered all kinds of crazy numbers. I told him he could say, I'm going to stay or I'm going to go. So I believe that this is coming from his father. Yes. So this is coming from Lenoris's father. Quote, he was offered all kinds of crazy numbers. I told him he could say, I'm going to stay or I'm going to go. But by my 2 cents, it was to get into college on a scholarship, play ball, get our degree, and go on about our business. This NIL deal came later. We didn't come here to make money. We came here to get our education, play ball, and with schools calling, we're not going to jump ship because they're offering more than what we're getting. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. End quote. Now, this is a quarterback that's from his dad, and Lenoris Sellers threw for 2,534 yards with 25 total touchdowns and another 674 rushing yards in his first season as a full-time starter, and got SEC Freshman of the Year honors. But it's funny how the guy that's in the midst of all this and this tampering and using the transfer portal to entice someone to get an NIL deal when NIL and the transfer portal were supposed to be mutually exclusive. It's just interesting, of all things, Bud, that the guy that we're talking about is just so happens to be a kid that I know, a kid that I've spoken to and spent some time with here. So it's interesting. But yeah, his father did speak on being offered money, and allegedly there was multiple deals out there, including a 2-year, $8 million deal, which means on average making $4 million a year. He would be making more than many NFL quarterbacks in the same year.
Well, yeah, and that's exactly what I had read too. And speaking of that, using an NIL to get somebody to transfer, I that's another sore spot on, as far as I'm concerned, is this transfer portal. I believe that something has to be done to limit this movement. You make a move, maybe you move one time,
yeah.
Then it reverts back to the old way where if you want to move again, you got to set out a year. And if you've got 2 years of eligibility, you set out a year, you've only got 1 year of eligibility left. But I mean, last summer, Dan, at the meetings there in Charlotte, I believe there was a kid there, a quarterback that was with his 5th team that was there, and I don't remember which team he was with, but I believe since he had started college, that was his 5th team.
Yeah.
I mean, how far can we really go on this? And also these extra years of eligibility. I realized COVID did that. It put some guys in. Some guys are playing for their 7th year now this season because of court rulings and all that. And the old theory was you do your 4 years in a 5-year period, and then you're done.
Yeah.
Unless it happened to do with BYU, where they had the Mormons that did their 2-year, whatever they called that, their in service, that they had to be away for 2 years, and they were allowed to pick up their eligibility after that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think we know this to be true. When you transfer from one school to the next, not all of your credits transfer. So I don't know who's getting a degree, if anybody's getting a degree. Stetson Bennett, when he was at Georgia, joked that he was at the school for 5 years and didn't have a bachelor's degree. That would have been an immediate investigation if I were the NCAA. If someone is laughing about the fact that they've been there longer than it takes to get a degree and they don't have one. So, I mean, it's strange. You know what else is strange, Bud, to go to your point of saying, here's a guy who comes into the ACC kickoff and he's been to, 4 schools in 5 years or 5 schools or whatever it may be. And you realize that in the last couple of years that you and I have been to the ACC kickoff, there's a guy that comes up to the podium and I'm like, I know that face. I know that name. And I'm like, oh, because he's here this year for BC, but last year he was at Clemson. Or he's here on Florida State, but last year he was at Duke. Like, we're seeing the same people wearing a different jersey this year, but it's the same name. And it's so strange to be experiencing that and what that's like to have a kid be at ACC kickoff in 2024 and he's a Duke quarterback, and then in 2025 he might be a North Carolina quarterback. It's a very weird scenario. We did have some things come in here. Some people speaking about schools that can afford to pay it, and then speaking about Boeheim that had wins taken away from him because of, just a few things that had happened in, YMCA thing, one paper with Fab Mello and all that. But UNC had a whole thing that came up that HBO covered apparently before the NCAA decided to cover it. And that was including like fake degrees and all kinds of stuff, but nothing happened to North Carolina. There's a push to put the Redskins back where the name of the Commanders is. We got that came in. And then Adam Lemrise said, 2 good friends on here right now. Miss y'all. Maryland belongs to the ACC. Should have never left. Rutgers belongs to the Big East. Big Ten doesn't, and they don't fit in the Big Ten. And then we got a message that said, Quinn Ewers, former Texas quarterback, reportedly rejected an $8 million NIL offer to transfer and instead entered the draft. And then Adam said, look at Cam Rising from Utah, 7 years and is still playing. So there's something to be said about that as well. Yeah, I mean, I think it's crazy, Bud, that obviously we know that not every credit transfers like I had stated. So what are they doing to get their degree? And if you go to 4 schools in 4 years, or you go to 5 schools in 4, whatever that may be, are you a team player? Do you run away from competition? Do you have personal responsibility? Do you have accountability? What are we teaching kids if they can go to a different place every year and never have to compete, never have to deal with something, never have to essentially go to class, don't have to care about their credits? What are we teaching the youth of today? And by the way, Bud, if you go to 4 schools in 4 years, for your 10-year college reunion, which one do you go to?
That's a great point. And like you said, are these, they're not there for studying, no, as far as I'm concerned. It just, I don't see how they can be. How can they pick up on these things by going to a different school each year? And like you said, their credits aren't transferring. And, the whole idea, in my estimation, of college athletics was to go play, be loyal to your school, get a, with your scholarship, get a degree. I see a lot of these players that, went and maybe, because they changed the rules where now you can go out after 2 years now, go into the NFL, or after, you can have a redshirt year, but you've had 2 years. So many of those players never completed college, but a lot of them have actually gone back. I've just read some things online where there have been several Florida State players, former Florida State players that played even in the late 80s and the 90s, have gone back and finished their degrees, which I think is a great thing to do. But to me, growing up, the whole intention of going to college and playing sports was to go there and play and be loyal to your team and get a degree. That's, and we've lost that.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, is there any loyalty anymore? Something I will be breaking down next week, but going off of what we said, is how this $20.5 million on average will be breaking down per team. Number one, no surprise, football getting over $15 million of the $20.5 million. So they're accounting for almost the entire $20.5 million. Basketball getting over $3 million on average. Then hockey, then baseball, then women's basketball. So the first women's sport to be cared about in this $20.5 million revenue sharing, the first time we see a women's sport on this list is in fifth of where the money is going. And on average, they will only receive $233,913 as opposed to football and basketball together accounting for over 18 of the $20 million, like we had discussed. The sport that will get the least amount of money, beach volleyball for women, $8,536 for the entire team. And most women's sports are at the bottom of this thing. There's only two women's sports that will receive over $100,000, and that is basketball and indoor volleyball, gymnastics, softball, hockey, soccer, track and field, cross country, lacrosse, swimming and diving, rowing, field hockey, tennis, golf, and beach volleyball, all for women. It will fall below the $100,000 threshold, and that also counts for men's soccer, men's track and field, men's tennis, and all that. So basically, and I'm going to say this to kind of sum it all up because we'll break it down more next week. To sum this up, Bud, the college model hasn't changed. It's still the same. Now hear me out. The schools that had money are still the schools at the top. The schools that could entice you are still the schools at the top. The sports that had the most coverage are still the sports at the top. All we've essentially done with this house settlement and NIL and the transfer portal is we've taken the haves and the have-nots. We've kept them exactly the same. We just made the model cost more. So the model hasn't changed. It just costs more.
Oh, you're exactly right. From that breakdown, I had not seen that breakdown as of yet. And, again, I'm still studying this, but, having granddaughters, I have two granddaughters that are athletes, and one just has signed a scholarship to play at a Division II school for soccer. And they're very limited on what they can get as far as any scholarship money. And then having a granddaughter that plays hockey. She's a younger player, but right now she's in Michigan. They don't even have any high school girls hockey in Michigan. Only a few states do. Well, again, with these breakdowns, do they have an incentive to really keep playing or what? When they see a football player getting $8 million breakdown to play or whatever, and well, I got a partial scholarship to go to college,
Yeah.
Again, where is the fairness? So
one college football player will make more money in a year, arguably, than a bunch of sports combined for their entire roster. So we could have one quarterback in college football make more money than 5 Olympic sports combined with every one of their student athletes.
Well, that's true. And they're also going to be able to get their NIL money too on top of that. So, it just does not make a lot of sense to me. Like I say, it's the to me, it's the end of what we know as college sports. That, in my opinion, it can't be any more than that. It's the end of what we knew college sports to be.
Amen. I agree. Bud, final note here. Got to ask you this in all your years of covering Florida State. Your thoughts in your research, in your time spent, Florida State, do they remain in the ACC? Do they leave? Does this House settlement do anything to preserve them staying in the ACC?
That's a really good question, Dan, and I'm not sure. I've not talked to anybody down there close to the program. I will be seeing someone next week, a longtime person involved with Florida State athletics, and he's in Tallahassee, and I will be meeting up with him over in North Carolina next week. So I really would like to kind of pick his brain and see if he knows anything from what he hears through the program down there. And what I find out, I will for sure let you know. So.
Well, yeah, thank you. I definitely would like to keep the family together. We will see what happens. Bud Alderman, sports writer of many years in this beautiful world of sports and of course with collegiate athletics. Bud, I thank you for your questions. I thank you for your time. I thank you for the conversation. It flew by, and that's because, honestly, conversations only fly by if you're having a good time and there's something positive to it. So I always appreciate talking with you. I look forward to seeing you at the ACC kickoff. And more than anything else, I thank you for your friendship. I thank you for your support. And I hope the best for you and your family, and hope everybody's safe and doing well.
All right. Appreciate it very much, Dan, and looking forward to seeing you again. Longtime friend. Thank you.
Absolutely. Talk soon. That coming from Bud Alderman once again here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. We're going to take our final step aside from inside the Great Lakes Honda City studios, and then we will wrap things up right after this on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Thanks for being with us, and continue to ride all the way through the end of today's show. Appreciate you. Here's a message from Renee from Bryan's Landing, located on 6523 East Seneca Turnpike in Jamesville, New York. Open Tuesdays and Wednesdays for dinner, Thursday through Saturday for lunch and dinner, and Sundays for brunch.
It's a lot like the way that my mom and dad ran their restaurant. We have put in place a lot of people that are family to us, very similar to how my dad hired people that were family to him. And then the tradition I'm carrying on is a lot of the items that are on our menu are my dad's. And he taught our chefs how to recreate his dishes. So I think that Tommy McNerney, who our executive chef is, to him it is an art. And I think that when he does create a dish, it's not just about making the food taste delicious, which is definitely our priority, but it's an art to him, and it's almost like his canvas on a plate where he just wants the colors to look great, and people love it because he takes pride in that. And Brian and I appreciate that. We want it to obviously look good and taste good. I will tell you, when we opened up, it was 6 weeks before COVID. And what was amazing was the community, our friends and family stepped up, and everybody did takeout. Everybody supported us. Our hearts were just so filled. So to Brian and I, obviously our friends come all the time, and we just have repeat customers in Jamesville, and I think people going to our previous restaurant in Green Lakes are making the trip to come to Bryan's Landing to support us. And I mean, I think we have great food and a great atmosphere. So it's very, very important to us.
Head to Bryan's Landing, located on 6523 East Seneca Turnpike in Jamesville, New York, where memories have become recipes that are now meals to share with you. Tuesdays and Wednesdays for dinner, Thursday through Saturday for lunch and dinner, and on Sundays for brunch. And be sure to come out for live music Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Here is a special message from Brian Bruno, owner of Servomation Refreshments Incorporated.
I grew up in the family business. Had the experience of working for a national food service company with thousands of employees. And as much as I enjoyed the experience I had. There was something about, owning my own company and being able to change the things I saw wrong with the industry firsthand, which is why I moved back to my hometown in Canastota, New York to launch Servamation. It was back in 2007. When we first started the business in 2007, really you didn't find any machines with credit card readers. There was a lack of variety in machines. You got stuck with basically whatever the vending company wanted to sell that day. There was a lot of inefficiencies in the business, and those were all things that we saw as opportunities, both from a customer level to improve and from an operating level to be more efficient. We've really been at the forefront of introducing retail technology into our space. We were doing self-checkout back in 2009 before it really became a national phenomenon. The whole point of it isn't to just improve the customer experience. It's to make it feel more like a retail environment where people don't have to be afraid of what they're buying behind glass. They don't have to be afraid of not being able to see the ingredients of the packages. It was an easy transaction from that standpoint. If we were to reinvent something, we wanted to make sure what we were making looked and felt more like a deli and not like something that you would traditionally see in a vending machine. I was tired of hearing for years the customers say the wheel of death because the vending machine would circle around with the same tuna salad in it. What we wanted to do was it really change the perception of that food. So allowing customers to touch it, allowing customers to feel the weight of it, allowing customers to see the freshness of it, and also the variety of it really helps them change the perception and ultimately the value of what we bring to them. The point of differentiation you have to make is either in value or the quality. And I think on both of those fronts, Servamation has really, in large part, changed that value system for employees. So they no longer have to worry about bringing their food from home or having to leave their desk during the day and rush out to get back in time for their break to end. We're bringing something that they can count on in their break room every day, and they know it's going to be there, they know it's going to be fresh, and they don't have to worry about it being sold out or something that they don't enjoy. We've also heavily invested in flavored water machines, so you can get a glass of water with a fresh piece of fruit in it, along with bean to cup coffee machines. So there's not a day that goes by we're not surprised when we get customers that call us and say, we didn't know you could do all this. We're really lucky to have a strong group of dedicated employees. Most of our employees have been with us since inception. They're family to us, and people like doing business with people they like and trust. And I think the same thing goes for employees. And in a day and an age where there's a lot of corporations that just look at an employee as a number and don't get to know them, that's just not the way I was raised or how I like to do business. So we're a little old-fashioned. We like getting close to our employees. We like knowing how we can help them. We like knowing how we can improve their lives, adjust their schedules, whatever it may be to help improve their quality of life. And we think in the end that makes for a happier employee. We're fortunate enough to have really grown over the last several years, and from Pennsylvania to Massachusetts to Connecticut, we really do have a strong connection, even though we're not in the rooms every day with these employees. There's not one single employee that we feel like we don't know, and certainly we know they can call us at any time, and they're definitely treated as family to us. I wake up every single day really excited to surprise our customers in a good way. The one thing I can tell you is I think that every one of our employees and every one of our customers will continue to be at the forefront of every decision we make.
Find out how Servomation can help you and your business by going to servomation.com. Avicoli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, has been your trusted neighbor for decades. Located just steps from Liverpool High School, we're happy to have the Liverpool Warriors on-site, on-location broadcast at Avicoli's through Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every single month, featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration throughout the year from Liverpool High School. Head out to Avicoli's today on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. We'd love to see you out there, and of course you can call them at 315-622-5100 for takeout, delivery, and catering. That's 315-622-5100, and also find them on myavicolis.com. That's myavicollis.com. Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to K-9 Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see K-9 Campground and where your dog will be staying, in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call K-9 Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9Kampground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9Kampground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to K-9 Campground.
Looking for your next ride? Look no further than Great Lakes Honda City, located on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Serving our community for decades, their new and pre-owned vast array of vehicles are available to you Monday through Saturday on site. To search from home, shop at GreatLakesHondaCity.com. Call 315-365-5576 to set up an appointment. That's 315-365-5576 for Great Lakes Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Great cars, great people, Great Lakes.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant.
GG Cards and Breaks. Like, comment, subscribe.
GG Cards or Breaks comes to you on 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York. Open Tuesday through Saturday from 10 to 6 and Sundays from 10 to 5 for all your sports card and trading card needs. From singles, graded cards, autograph cards, potential one-on-ones, rookie patch autos, which are also called RPAs, to packs and boxes. You will find so many things at GG Cards and Breaks. Hockey, soccer, basketball, baseball, football, Disney Lorcana, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, Magic the Gathering. While supplies last, that's not even naming everything that's right there for you. They have Marvel Upper Deck cards. So many cool things at GG Cards and Breaks that keeps us all a big kid. That big kid spirit should never go away. And having that kid spirit, no matter how old you are, to me, those are the best adults. The ones that can just appreciate something like buying a pack of cards, having the thrill of opening it up, being there with your friends, your family members, seeing what you got, getting your favorite player, putting it in a little sleeve and a top loader and putting it on your dresser. It's those moments, those memories. And you're talking to someone who's collected cards almost my entire life. And I can look at cards and I can go back to memories. My Uncle Bill, my G-Mama, my Gammy, my mom, my dad, my friends. GG Cards and Breaks helps to make those memories. Head to see them today. Let them know that DT sent you. 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York. Open Tuesday through Saturday from 10 to 6 and Sundays from 10 to 5. With that being said, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, I thank you for spending this week with us. And I want to thank everybody that watched and listened to my special at Avicoli's last night with professional boxer, Central New York native, and Liverpool Warrior alum Bryce Mills. We had a great show. Got to hang out with him and the fam. And just really enjoyed how God showed himself all throughout that conversation, including a piece of the conversation that I'm going to share on our social media and our YouTube channel today, where the show was interrupted in a really cool and positive Godism type of way. A really cool God incident, so to speak. Not a coincidence, but a God incident. And I'm excited to share that. So thanks to everybody that's watched our Bryce Mills broadcast, listened to our Bryce Mills broadcast. I'm going to be sharing the link to listen to it on internet streaming radio. So make sure you look out for that on all of our channels. And of course, the video is up on facebook.com/wakeupcalldt and on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. And we have now hit over 1,000 people that have viewed it just on Facebook. So thank you to all of you for that, being a part of the show and the quality of people and the really nice messages that you sent to Bryce Mills during the broadcast, who's a little bro to me. So youtube.com, facebook.com, both /wakeupcalldt. Well, where you will find our videos like that with Bryce Mills, you will also find us live Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. You also find us on internet streaming radio live Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com. Of course, once we go live, we jump into the archive, and I'll be adding a bunch of shows from this week to the archive on Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, Player FM, Podbean, Podchaser.com, Podvine, Spotify, TuneIn, YouTube. All you got to do is search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. Make sure to follow, subscribe. It is free on these channels. And, of course, you could search us on any internet search engine, and you will find Wake Up Call. You can look up Dan Tortora, and you will find plenty of links there to our social media, as well as to the ways to watch and listen. And, of course, you can ask Alexa and your Google Home device to play the latest episode of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. They will do that for you as well. Many thanks to the Brooklyn Pickle, Southern Pines. They are our partner in doing our In a New York Minute segments, which are inspirational, positive segments that are only a minute long, and we send them to you every week, proudly presented by Brooklyn Pickle. You can go and visit them on 1788 Old Morganton Road in Southern Pines, North Carolina, and let them know that DT sent you to the best place to get a sandwich. Many thanks to our team of partners in Central and Upstate New York, Great Lakes Honda City, Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, GG Cards and Breaks, Mon Paz, the snack capital of the world, Avicoli's Servomation Mother's Cupboard, as well as K-9 Kamp Dog Daycare, Chick-fil-A Cicero, Pizza Man, Brian's Landing, and of course, we are the exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your Lemoyne College Dolphins. It's Fins Up every single month on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Find your Dolphins every Wednesday during Dolphin Time at 9 a.m. Eastern Time with student athletes, coaches, administration, future Dolphins, and alumni. You can find all of our content. We promised to cover Lemoyne of the last 4 years with something for you. We're actually 1 year ahead of schedule. We have given Lemoyne video coverage and covered stories that are 5 years worth in 4 years. So we have underpromised, over-delivered to tell the stories of Lemoyne College. And you can find them on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and find our Lemoyne Dolphins playlist. You also find the Dolphins on wakeupcalldt.com's homepage and underneath the exclusive partners tab. For more information, go to LeMoyneDolphins.com. Fins up. The Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse are exclusive multimedia marketing partners with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Find your Bobcats every single month, where sports meets life in what we call the Bobcat Buzz. Student athletes, coaches, administration, future Bobcats potentially as well that we've spoken to or connected with. So make sure that you connect with the Bobcats by going to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and find our BSC Syracuse playlist. You'll also find the Bobcats by going to wakeupcalldt.com's homepage and underneath the exclusive partners tab. For more information, go to syracuse.bscbobcats.com and go Bobcats. The Binghamton University Bearcats are exclusive multimedia marketing partners with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Find your Bearcats every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time in Bearcat Time with student athletes, coaches, administration, and alumni joining the broadcast here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora with coverage with the Bearcats that you won't find quite like this anywhere else. The Bearcats are on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and find our Binghamton playlist. You also find the Bearcats on wakeupcalldt.com's homepage and underneath the exclusive partners tab. For more information, go to binghamtonbearcats.com, and as always, go Bearcats. I want to thank you for tuning in once again to this week of Wake Up Call with student athletes and coaches and wonderful people in the world of broadcasting and writing and journalism, like Mr. Bud Alderman, Dave Paziak, Papa Joe, Brendan Murphy. I want to thank everybody that's been here with me this week. Scott Landers, I appreciate y'all very much. My little sister Franny, and of course our show on site, on location at Avicoli's with Bryce Mills. We're at Avicoli's every month. We're at the Wildcat Sports Pub throughout the year, and we're at Pizza Man every month. We will be at Pizza Man next week on Monday, and that'll be on Monday, June 23rd. We're doing a live broadcast with Malik Burks, and very excited to have Malik of Baldwinsville B football history joining me on stage to honor his career in a way that hasn't been done before. So we very much look forward to doing that with Malik and his family and hopefully some of his teammates. And we look forward to seeing you out Monday night, giving you something to do to start off the week. Monday, June 23rd, 6 p.m. Malik Burks and myself, Dan Tortora, on site, on location, on stage at Pizza Man. Come and grab some pizza, grab some wings, and hang out with Malik and I as we honor his career. Thank you to Carvel DeWitt for the annoying moment of the week. Thank you to Chick-fil-A Cicero for the light between us and for Lead, Learn, Evolve, Ad-Lib, and Deliver. Thank you to K-9 Kamp Dog Daycare for the top dog of the week, which are the Indiana Pacers. And thank you to Bud Alderman, fellow sports writer, and his thoughts on the collegiate sports world. With all that being said, Facebook at WakeUpCallDT, X at CallDT, Instagram at WakeUpCall_DT. Make sure to vote in our polls, as always, on X. And we look forward to talking with you soon. From the Great Lakes Honda City Studios, I appreciate you. I love you all. Another great week of doing what I love and loving what I do. I pray for us all to be healthy, safe, and happy, and for God's light to shine on every single one of us. Guide our path to Him and guard us from everything that is not from Him. Have a beautiful, wonderful day. Thank you, God, for being my best friend. From the Great Lakes Honda City Studios, God bless, no stress, do your best. We'll talk soon.